You ever look back at one of those summers that didn't seem like a big deal at the time, but years later, you realize everything shifted because of it? For me, that summer was the one when my mom rented out the guest house behind our place. I was 21, back home from college, broke, single, and mostly just trying to avoid my stepdad's passive-aggressive comments about my directionless lifestyle. She listed the guest house online, tiny, kinda musty, but cheap. And a week later, some guy named Dylan moved in. I remember the first time I saw him. It was June, hot as hell, and I was dragging a bag of trash to the bins out back when I nearly walked straight into him, unloading a duffel from his trunk. He turned, and I stopped mid-step. Dylan. He had that look. Messy black hair, stubble just starting to come in, sleeves rolled up to reveal arms that looked like he actually lifted things on purpose. Not overly muscular, just lean, defined. The kind of guy who probably smelled like old books and eucalyptus or some shit. He noticed me staring. "Hey," he said, a little breathless from the heat. "You the son?" That caught me off guard. "What?" "Your mom said she lived here with her husband and her son. I'm guessing you're him." "Oh, yeah, I'm Sam." "Dylan," he said, offering a hand. It was warm. His grip was solid. "Thanks for not charging me LA prices." I laughed awkwardly. "Yeah, our backyard cottage isn't exactly luxury." He looked around. "Honestly, it's perfect." And just like that, he became part of the daily rhythm of that summer. He wasn't loud, he wasn't clingy. He kept mostly to himself. Always polite, but not pushy. We bumped into each other a few times a week. Him leaving for work as I came back from late-night shifts at the pizza place, both of us sneaking beers out of the garage fridge, awkwardly nodding hellos over the sound of sprinklers and crickets. It was chill. Until it wasn't. The shift happened about 3 weeks in. My mom and stepdad went out of town for a long weekend, some retreat in wine country. I was supposed to house sit and feed the dog, which basically just meant I had the whole house to myself. That Friday night, I was out back, trying to get the grill to start, and failing miserably, when I heard the sliding door to the guest house open. Dylan stepped out, barefoot, holding 2 beers. "You look like a man about to commit arson," he said. I gave up and tossed the lighter onto the table. "I think the grill's dead." He handed me one of the bottles. Cold. Beads of condensation sliding down the neck. "Want help?" he offered. I hesitated. "You cook?" He took a sip of his beer. Enough to not starve. It was the first time we actually hung out. Just the 2 of us. No parents, no polite distance. Just a messed up grill, cheap beer, and a bowl of slightly burnt hot dogs we ended up making on the stove. We sat on the back porch after, the sun long gone, the sky that soft navy color just before it gets truly dark. "So, what do you do?" I asked, mostly to fill the quiet. He shrugged. "Freelance photography, some web stuff, nothing exciting." "That's still cooler than delivering pizza." "Hey," he said, smiling. "Pizza's noble work." "Feeding the people!" I laughed, and something about the way he looked at me made my stomach dip. Not in a bad way, in a dangerous way. The silence stretched again, but it wasn't uncomfortable. He took another sip of his beer and asked, "You in school?" "Yeah." "Just finished my 3rd year. Communications major. No idea what I'm doing with it." He nodded like he understood. "Same here," he said. "I switched majors 3 times. Thought I'd be a writer. Ended up behind a camera." We talked for a while after that. Nothing deep. Just life, family, music, the way the city always smelled faintly like sunscreen and traffic in the summer. And then he asked it, "You seeing anyone?" It came out casually. So casual it might have been mistaken for small talk. But the second he said it, my heart skipped. "No," I said, staring into my bottle. "You?" He shook his head. "Not for a while." The air felt thicker suddenly. Not heavy, just expectant. I didn't say anything else. Neither did he. We just sat there, the night humming around us. our shoulders almost touching. When he stood to head back to the guest house, he paused. "I'm glad you're cool with me being here," he said. "Your mom made it sound like you'd be territorial," I blinked. "Why would I care?" he smiled. "Some guys don't like strangers living that close." I didn't say what I was thinking. That I didn't mind at all. That I kind of liked it. He nodded once, then walked back toward his door, the porch light catching on the back of his neck, the line of his shoulders under his shirt. I didn't sleep well that night, and that was the first time I let myself wonder, did he mean anything by that question? Was he just being friendly, or was there something else under the surface? I didn't have an answer, but I knew one thing. I couldn't stop thinking about him. After that night on the porch, I started noticing Dylan more. Not in a creepy way. I wasn't stalking him or anything, but I became hyper-aware of when he was around. The sound of the sliding door behind the guest house, his car pulling in late from a shoot, the way his shadow moved past the blinds in the evenings when he turned on a light. Small stuff. Stupid stuff. We didn't hang out again right away. It was like neither of us wanted to acknowledge that something had shifted, but it had. The next time we talked was over laundry, of all things. I was switching loads from the washer to the dryer in the garage, wearing nothing but gym shorts and a tank top, when Dylan walked in holding a basket. He froze when he saw me, and I don't know what possessed me, but I said, "Hey, you're just in time to fold mine." He smirked. "Lucky me." He set his basket down, leaned against the dryer, and started pulling clean clothes from mine like it was the most normal thing in the world. We ended up folding together in silence for a few minutes. The only sounds were the hum of the washer, the occasional creak of the garage door in the wind, and my heartbeat going way too fast for no reason. At one point, he picked up a pair of my briefs and raised an eyebrow. "Bold color choice." "They were on sale," I said, grabbing them from him. He laughed, then shrugged. "You could pull off worse." I didn't know what to say to that, but I felt warm in places that had nothing to do with the garage heat. That night, I caught myself scrolling his Instagram. He didn't post a ton, mostly moody black and white portraits, city shots, some candid stuff from road trips, but he had a few selfies tucked in there, one in particular, him in bed, bare chest, arms slung behind his head. Felt like it had no business being public. I stared too long, then closed the app. The next few days were weird, tense but in that invisible, low-stakes way. He'd wave if we passed in the yard. Sometimes, he'd sit outside and read while I pretended to be on my phone nearby. One time, he came back from a jog shirtless, sweat trailing down his spine, and I had to fake a phone call just so I wouldn't make a sound. And then came the night, everything cracked open a little more. I was in the kitchen making pasta at like 10:30. Don't judge, I'd skipped dinner, and the sliding door opened behind me. Dylan walked in. He had a hoodie on, hood up, joggers hanging low on his hips, and a plastic container in one hand. "Hey," he said. "Sorry, your mom said I could grab Tupperware if I needed." "All yours," I said, nodding to the cabinet. He opened it, took one, then hovered awkwardly. "That smell good?" he asked. I shrugged. "You want some?" He blinked. "Seriously?" I made too much. That's how we ended up sitting at the kitchen island, 2 bowls between us, a sad, half bottle of red wine open between us. "You always cook this late?" he asked. "Only when I forget I'm a human with needs." He laughed. College habits die hard. We ate, we talked, and then it happened again. A quiet moment, a glance that lasted too long. His leg brushed mine under the table, and didn't move. Neither did I. The conversation slowed, but we didn't stop looking at each other. Finally, he said, "Can I ask you something kind of personal?" I nodded. "Sure. You ever dated a guy before?" I froze, not because I was uncomfortable, just because I wasn't expecting him to ask it. "Yeah," I said carefully. "Couple times. You?" He looked down at his wine glass. "Not really." "Not really yes, or not really no?" He smiled slightly, like he appreciated the question. "Not really no," he said, "but I never did anything about it." There it was, the thing that had been hovering between us since the backyard. I leaned forward slightly. "Why not?" He shrugged. "Guess I didn't have anyone I wanted to enough." Until... He trailed off. But he didn't need to finish. The silence between us felt like a held breath, and I wasn't about to exhale first. He set his glass down slowly, then looked at me. "Would it be weird if I said I liked hanging out with you?" "No," I said. "It wouldn't be weird." He nodded slowly, then stood. "I should go," he said, but he didn't move right away. He stood there, fingers tapping lightly against the back of the chair. "Thanks for the food." "Anytime." He walked to the door, opened it halfway, then turned back. "I'll see you around?" I nodded. "Yeah. See you around." He left, and I just sat there, staring at the empty chair across from me, my pulse still loud in my ears. Whatever this was, we were both standing on the edge of it now. Neither of us had jumped, but the wind was definitely picking up. The next day, I told myself I wasn't going to overthink it. He was just being friendly. He was curious, maybe, flirting in that vague, nothing ever happens kind of way. Some guys do that when they're bored, and I'd been down that road before. Guys who toe the line, get close, then pretend it was all in your head. So I kept my distance. Or I tried to. But that weekend, everything shifted again. It was Saturday, and the house was weirdly quiet. My mom and stepdad were still out of town, and I was halfway through a lazy afternoon of video games and microwave leftovers when I heard a knock. Not on the front door. On the side, one. The one that led to the patio. Dylan. He was standing there, holding a six-pack and a plastic grocery bag. "Thought I'd return the favor," he said. "Grill's finally working again." I opened the door. "You fixed it?" He shrugged. "Watched a 5-minute YouTube video and prayed. It clicked." He held the bag up. "Burgers?" That's how we ended up outside again, this time in the heat of the early evening. The smell of grilling meat filled the air, and Dylan stood behind the grill with a spatula in one hand and a beer in the other, looking way too comfortable in my space. "Do you cook for everyone who rents a guest house?" I asked. "Only the ones who give me their laundry and pasta." We ate on the porch again. This time, it felt less accidental. Like we were both pretending this was just two guys hanging out, but both fully aware it wasn't that simple anymore. At one point, I leaned back in my chair and watched him. The light hit him just right, highlighting the curve of his jaw, the shadow of stubble, the way his collar dipped a little low and showed a sliver of chest. "You always this domestic?" I asked. Half teasing, he glanced over. "You always this nosy?" I grinned. Touché. When we finished eating, he didn't leave. Instead, he asked, "You want to come over? I downloaded that dumb space movie you said you missed." His place was smaller, darker, cozier. He had a decent couch, way too many throw blankets for a guy, and one of those air purifiers that made a faint hum. We sat closer than we needed to. The movie played, but neither of us really watched it. Somewhere around the halfway mark, my knee touched his. I didn't pull back this time. Neither did he. I turned my head. He was already looking at me. There was this moment, long and quiet, where everything paused. Then, softly, he said, "Can I tell you something?" I nodded. "I've been thinking about kissing you for like 2 weeks. My throat went dry." "Yeah?" I managed. He leaned in slowly, not assuming, just offering, and I met him halfway. The kiss was soft, careful, not shy, but unsure in that way that says, "I want this, but I don't want to mess it up." His hand found my jaw, thumb brushing the side of my face. Mine slid up under his hoodie, fingers brushing the warm skin at his waist. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't loud. It was one of those first kisses that doesn't try to prove anything. That just says, "I've been wanting to know what this feels like." When we pulled apart, he didn't say anything at first, just rested his forehead against mine and let out a breath like he'd been holding it all summer. Then he whispered, "That okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, that was really okay." We didn't do more than that. Just kissed a little, curled up under a blanket, half watching the movie, fully tangled up in each other by the end of it. It felt like crossing a line we'd both been circling, and neither of us seemed in a rush to walk it back. After that night, after that kiss, something in the air between us shifted. Not in a dramatic way. It was subtle, quieter, like a frequency only we could hear. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Dylan, making coffee. Come over if you want. No emojis, no overthinking, just that. I pulled a hoodie over my head and walked barefoot across the yard. He was in the tiny kitchen area of the guest house, hair a mess, shirtless, wearing flannel pajama pants that hung a little too low. The room smelled like coffee and sleep and something warm I couldn't name. He handed me a mug. "Morning," he said, soft. "Morning." He sat on the couch and patted the spot next to him. I joined him, and we didn't say much. Just drank in silence, shoulders touching, the morning light filtering in through the blinds. I remember thinking, this feels dangerously easy. Because it did. He didn't act weird. He didn't pull away. He didn't treat it like some late-night mistake to be buried under jokes or vague apologies. He acted like we were just here, together. We didn't label it. We didn't need to. But that weekend we fell into a rhythm. Saturday afternoon, I helped him carry some gear to a shoot downtown. He introduced me as a friend helping out. But the way he looked at me between shots didn't feel like just a friend. At one point, while he adjusted his lens, he turned to me and said, "You have good hands. You should model for something." I laughed. "My hands?" "Yeah," he said, shrugging. "They're expressive." I caught him staring at them later, while we were waiting at a red light in his car. That night, we ordered Thai food, sat on his bed, and ate straight from the containers. "I can't believe you've never had yellow curry," I said. "I don't trust food that's the same color as mustard," he replied. "Okay, but it's not the same. Just taste it." He gave me a skeptical look, but tried it. Then he licked his lips and said, "All right, that's good." I grinned. "Told you." And just like that, we were kissing again. This time, it happened faster. The kind of kiss that comes mid-laugh, when your mouths are already close and your hands are already halfway there. I set the curry down on the nightstand before we spilled it. His hand was in my hair, mine under his shirt, feeling the way his stomach tensed when I touched him. We didn't go all the way, but we got close. Close enough to leave both of us breathless, flushed, tangled up in sheets in each other. Afterward, we just lay there, still dressed, but barely. Our legs overlapped, my head on his chest, his fingers moving lazily up and down my spine. "This is new for me," he murmured. "I know," I said. "You make it feel not scary." That stuck with me. We fell asleep like that. Intertwined, the window cracked open, the sounds of sprinklers and crickets drifting in. Sunday morning, I woke up in his bed, and he was watching me. Not in a creepy way, just observing, his hand resting lightly on my ribs, his eyes soft, still half asleep. "Sorry," he whispered. "Didn't mean to be weird." "It's not," I said. "It's nice." He smiled. "You're a good sleeper." "You're a good heater," he snorted. "That's what every guy wants to hear." We laughed. We kissed again. And when I went back to my side of the yard to shower and change, I did it with a stupid smile stuck to my face. That weekend didn't feel like a fling. It felt like the start of something. But I knew better than to name it too early. Because naming things gives them edges. And I didn't want to cut this open just to see what was inside. The week after that weekend was a weird mix of normal and not. During the day, we went about our lives, like always. Dylan had shoots. I had shifts. My mom and stepdad came back from their trip, oblivious to the fact that I'd spent most of the last 72 hours across the yard with a guy who used to be just a tenant. But at night, everything changed. Sometimes it was just a look across the yard. Sometimes he'd text me after dark. "You up? Want to watch something? Can't sleep." And without fail, I'd find myself slipping out the back door, walking barefoot across dewy grass, hoodie pulled tight against the chill, His door would open before I knocked. Every time, we never made a big deal of it, never defined what it was. Sometimes we'd watch movies, lying shoulder to shoulder under the same blanket, our hands drifting toward each other like they had their own gravity. Other times, we'd kiss, slow, drawn-out kisses that started soft and ended with us gasping against each other's skin, tangled in each other's limbs, barely keeping it together. But we never talked about it in the daylight. That started to mess with me, because I'd catch myself looking at him across the yard when my mom was watering plants, or when he made casual small talk with my stepdad, and I'd want to touch him, reach out, claim him. But I didn't. Not because I didn't want to, because I didn't know if he wanted me to. Then came Thursday night. He was already in bed when I got the text. "Dylan, door's open." I walked in to find him lying on top of the covers, shirtless, reading some paperback, a lamp casting a soft glow across his skin. He looked up, smiled. Hey. I kicked my shoes off and climbed onto the bed next to him. He closed the book, set it on the nightstand, and turned on his side to face me. "You smell like garlic," he said. "I brought leftover pasta." He raised an eyebrow. "Bribery?" "Maybe." I handed him the container and a fork. He ate while we sat shoulder to shoulder, and something about it felt so us by now. Like we'd been doing this for years. "You ever gonna tell your mom about this?" he asked suddenly. I froze. Not because it was a bad question, just because I hadn't expected him to ask it. "I don't know," I said honestly. He nodded slowly, chewing. Not judging, just curious. "Would you want me to?" He set the fork down, looked at me carefully. "I'd want to know I'm not a secret." That hit me in the chest. "Dylan," I started, but he waved it off. "It's not a deal breaker," he said. "Just sometimes I forget I'm in your world." Then I walk back across the yard and it's like none of that happened. I swallowed hard. "It's not like that." He looked at me. "Isn't it?" I didn't know what to say, so I didn't say anything. I just leaned in and kissed him, slow, deep, apologetic. His hand came up to my neck, pulled me closer. He kissed me back, but there was a different kind of tension in it now, like something unspoken was building between us, and neither of us knew how to say it out loud. Later, as we lay tangled in the sheets, he spoke again. "I don't need you to put a label on this," he said. "I just need to know I'm not alone in it." "You're not," I said immediately. "Okay." But the way he said it, "okay," sounded like he didn't totally believe me. I stayed the night again, but that time I didn't sleep easy, because it was the first time I realized we were in something now, and something real comes with weight. I wish I could say we eased into something easy, that the tension resolved itself, that we figured it out quietly and cleanly, like adults who know what they're doing. But that's not how it happened. The blow-up wasn't big. Not at first. But it hit hard. It started the following weekend. My mom invited a couple of her friends over for a barbecue. Dylan got pulled in to help with setting up tables and stringing lights. He didn't complain. He was polite, helpful, even joked with my stepdad while tying up the canopy. He didn't act different, but I did. I kept my distance, didn't look at him too long, laughed a little too loud at things that weren't that funny. I didn't want anyone to notice, didn't want questions, especially not from my mom's nosy friend who always asked if I was seeing anyone. So when she leaned over and said, "That tenant of yours is kinda hot, huh?" I just gave a polite smile and shrugged. "Yeah, he's cool." That's it. And I didn't see Dylan's face when I said it, but I felt him watching me. Later that night, when the crowd had thinned and I was stacking plates in the kitchen, he came in. Alone. Quiet. "You good?" I asked. He nodded once, too sharp. "Yeah, great." I looked at him. "Okay." Then he dropped the line that cracked something. Didn't realize we were back to just being cool. I turned. "What's that supposed to mean?" He crossed his arms. "It means you couldn't even look at me today?" like I was some stranger your mom invited by accident. Dylan, it was a family thing. I didn't want to make it weird. He laughed. Short, bitter. Right. Can't let anyone see you're actually into a guy. That would be weird. I felt my jaw tighten. It's not that simple. To you, it's not. To me, I've been showing up every night like I live here. I've kissed you, slept with you. But out there, you act like I'm just the guy who fixes your grill and folds your laundry. That's not fair, I said, heat rising in my chest. Isn't it? He asked. Because it feels like you want the part of me that fits in your bed, but not the part that might make people look at you differently. I didn't answer. I didn't know how. He nodded slowly, like that silence was louder than anything I could have said. Then he said, maybe I should go back to just being your tenant. And before I could stop him, he walked out, not slamming doors, not storming off, just gone. I didn't sleep that night. I kept checking my phone, kept staring across the dark yard like maybe he'd come back, like maybe I'd see his light flicker on, or his silhouette move across the blinds. But nothing. Just silence. The kind that fills your chest like smoke and doesn't let you breathe. It was 3 days before we spoke again. 3 long, quiet, awful days. I saw him in the yard once. He was heading out with his camera bag, sunglasses on, headphones in. He didn't even glance my way. That night, I almost texted. Typed, "Can we talk?" and stared at the blinking cursor. But I didn't send it. I didn't know what I'd say. Then, on the 3rd night, I walked out to the porch with a beer, hoping the cool air would settle my brain. The guest house light was on. And before I could stop myself, I walked across the yard. No text, no warning. I knocked lightly on the door. It opened a second later. He looked surprised to see me, but not shocked. "Hey," I said. He didn't respond right away, just stepped aside to let me in. I stood in the middle of the tiny living room, suddenly unsure of everything. "I've been an idiot," I said. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed again, but softer this time. Yeah, I nodded. I thought I could keep things separate. Us, my family, what people think. But I couldn't. He waited. I was scared, I admitted. Still kind of am. Dylan looked at me for a long moment. Then he said, quietly, "So was I." That made something crack open in my chest. "I don't want to pretend you're just my tenant," I said. "I don't want to pretend at all." He took a slow breath. "So what do you want?" I stepped closer. "I want to come here in the daylight," I said. "I want to introduce you to my mom. Eventually, when you're ready, when I'm ready. I want to kiss you when it's not 11 p.m. in secret. I want all of it. With you." His expression didn't change right away. But then he nodded and stepped into me and kissed me. No hesitation, no half step. Just this full body, grounding kind of kiss. The kind that says, "Finally." When we pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "So," he whispered, "does this mean I get to use your dryer again?" I laughed into his mouth. "Only if you fold my socks," he smiled. "Deal." That night, I stayed over again. But it was different now. No tiptoeing, no secrets. Just me and him, finally on the same page. And for the first time all summer, I slept all the way through the night,